For 30 years, this was the Senate chamber of the university. And the large table that is down in the Croft Chapter House, the big elliptical table, was designed for this room when it was created as the Senate chamber. It just went down the middle. There was a nice fireplace at the end of the room. But in the 1920s, when the university built Simcoe Hall and created a new Senate chamber down in Simcoe Hall, this room ceased being the Senate of the university, and everything changed. So this room has changed a good bit over the years. Its most dramatic feature is, in fact, this big window on the north side of the room, and it's a window that looks much out of scale for the size of the room. And sometimes people wonder why that window is the way it is, with two very small side lights and this great big central window. And the explanation has to do with its function in the original building. Go back before the restoration of this room in the 1970s, go back before the 1890s rebuilding of the building, and go back to the original building in the 1850s, because this was the end wall of Convocation Hall. And this was one of the main windows that lit Convocation Hall. So after the fire of 1890, this wall survived largely intact. There are photographs that show how much of that wall was preserved after the fire. And so in the rebuilding of the building in 1890, when the second floor was installed in this space, dividing into two floors and creating faculty offices and classrooms, this became the major window in a slightly shorter form for this particular room, for the Senate chamber. The memorial window at the east end of the room is in honor of the 3 students who were killed in the Battle of Ridgeway. Their bodies were brought back in state from the battle across the lake by steamer. There was a great parade with their bodies through the streets of Toronto up to the college. They lay in state here in the library in East Hall, and a memorial window was installed in the then Convocation Hall. When the building burned in 1890, that window was lost. And in the early 20th century, a second memorial window was put in East Hall here in order to act as a continuing memorial for those 3 students who were lost at the Battle of Ridgeway. It's a stained glass window by McCausland and Company, the main stained glass window manufacturers in Canada at the time. And that window shows in the central panel Athena, and on either side a soldier sheathing his sword, not, I think, drawing it out, but putting it away. And on the other side is student, to indicate the character of the lads who were lost here, that they had been acting as soldiers, but that their main intention was to be students in the university. One surviving piece of glass from the 1850s building is at the landing on the west stair at the end of the main corridor. And here it is with its 2 rather interesting and important motifs. On the one hand, in the main section of the window, the repeated motif of the crown, which calls to mind two things. First of all, that this is, of course, a Crown institution created by the Crown in the 1820s. And secondly, that that was the motif of King's College, and that has been carried over into this building as the crown and the repeated crowns in the central section of the window. The other motif in this window is the little small owl heads that are repeated in all of the red panels around the perimeter that alternate with that intense blue. And of course, the owl is intended to call to mind that this is an institution of learning. The owl is the symbol of wisdom, and here is where the youth of Ontario are going to acquire wisdom, I suppose, in the service of the Crown. The larger point to make when we look at this window is that though it's very different today, most of the major windows in the college were stained glass like this window. And all of that was destroyed in the fire, and basically none of it was replaced after the fire. Much of the symbolism in the windows that were decorated in this way was armorial motifs, that is, the coats of arms of either the university or of the college. So there was a repeated emphasis for the students as they went from class to class, and to the dining room, for example, it had colored glass, on the importance of the connection between the college and the university and the coats of arms in the windows. The stair itself, over which this window sits, is the only surviving stair from the 1850s of any great significance. So this stair is a perfect recollection of the 1850s building. This is a section of the building that, of course, was not burned in the fire in 1890, and so everything that we see around us is still original. The rose window beside me is a part of the rebuilding, though the frame is the original frame from the 1856 building. All the glass was, of course, lost in the fire, except for one piece of glass at the top of the west stairway, which I think we've already seen. The thing to understand about the building is that originally there was a lot of colored glass in the building. There were stained glass windows in Convocation Hall, in East Hall, in West Hall, in some of the classrooms, in fact, in most of the classrooms. The only plain glass, the only clear glass in the building, to a large extent, was in the student rooms in the west wing of the building. But in the rebuilding of the college, there was neither desire nor, I think, money to reproduce all the original colored glass. So we have the one surviving piece of colored glass and occasional pieces of 1890 colored glass, such as this window here.